This is Cadillac Unscripted on 107.9 CDY. It's sponsored, as always, by Independent Bank. Katie Huckle is here, my co-host, and we're going to talk about music today, Katie.
We certainly are. Do you want to know my favorite part of the football game?
Is the band.
100%.
Halftime?
Absolutely. And with us today is Charlie Rockwell. He is the Cadillac High School Band Director. Welcome, Charlie.
Welcome. Yeah, thank you.
We had you here for multiple reasons. Obviously, we want to talk about how your first couple of years running the band program at with the high school students, and your role with the students starts at about what grade?
We start band in 6th grade.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm in charge of them from then all the way through high school.
So we're going to cover that, and we're also going to talk about the big show today at Fox Motors. But why don't we start with a little career background first?
Well, I'm actually a Cadillac graduate. So Mr. Filkins was one of my band directors. So it was pretty cool to come back home and fill in for him.
Absolutely.
After he retired. After I finished here, I went to Alma College for a music degree, and then went to Texas to Southern Methodist University in Dallas. Brought my wife with me. We really had planned on spending, the 2 years of master's degree there, and then ended up staying for 11 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yep. So it was really the job opportunity back home. She's also from Northern Michigan.
What a gift to the community to have a local move home. That's very, very special. And I think you had a running start. You already had momentum because you were familiar and fit right in.
Right. So, yeah, after grad school, I taught for 9 years at a high school in Texas.
Right. Tell us about the vibrancy of the band program. How many kids are involved? Is it easy to recruit? Can you tell us about sort of the health of the band program?
Well, my first year was 2020, 2021.
Oh, boy.
So that spring, we couldn't really do much. Right.
Right.
Really couldn't do much for recruiting at all. So that first class, my current 7th graders, is maybe a little bit smaller than I'd like. My 8th grade class is doing just fine.
Great.
We're back up to about 50 beginners in 6th grade.
Great.
So all of that's starting to move forward a little bit. I know a lot of bigger band programs did have some trouble with retention throughout pandemic and COVID and whatnot, but we have really maintained. So I would like to grow the program, sure, but the fact that we've been able to maintain the last 2-3 years that's good enough for me right now.
What do you attribute that to, maintaining your numbers?
I'm not sure. I think it's part of just the culture of the band students. I know that's something that that Mike really focused on. These kids just love to play. I have some that I have to shoo out at the end of a football game. It's a long day. It's a late night. We get back to the band room and they won't stop playing.
So Charlie, there's a closeness with the band. They become dear, dear friends and beyond.
Absolutely.
And I think those are friendships that continue after high school. Can you describe the culture to us?
Well, I think the biggest thing there is that it's one of the few programs you can be involved in for 7 years and spend 1 hour of class every single day with that same group of kids. So there's just a natural closeness among them because of the time they spend together. But they also share, sorry.
No, please continue.
They also just share that love of making music and playing their instruments, and there's a special bond just with that. And that's not a band-specific thing. It's a music thing.
I had a woman once come to me and explain, and this was regarding Mike when he was teaching in Manton, the band director there, and she said, I never felt like I belonged to anything. I wasn't in any clubs. I wasn't an athlete, and I felt like a loner until I got involved in band, and it changed my life. Can you speak to that?
I've had plenty of students in that same situation. You've got a safe place, a safe classroom at home or at school that feels like home.
Yeah.
You've got those close friends next to you. A lot of time spent together. It can pull some of those kids into something a little bit more meaningful that maybe would have just gotten lost in the hallways at school.
Wow.
I think it's extremely important, especially at that age, to have some sort of sense of belonging. Don't you think?
Right. And I think sports do the same thing. I think music, band, choir, orchestra, or drama club, or anything like that, does the same thing, but in a little bit different way. Those things pull at different kids, right?
Well, and Charlie, let me ask you this. Do you still play an instrument? This is a lifelong skill that you're teaching these kids. They can play into their 90s.
Right. So I grew up playing percussion. So I like to, bang on drums once in a while. And really, marimba is, I didn't do that very much when I was younger, but as I got better at it through college and grad school, it's one of my favorites to play. The big thing is just finding opportunities.
Sure.
So
When you were in high school, Charlie, did you know that this is the direction you were heading in as far as a career goes, or did that come later?
yeah, absolutely not.
Okay.
So when did it come to you?
Well, I think it's funny for band directors to say that, because most of them, they get to like their sophomore, junior year of high school and they go, I'm going to be a band director. Like, this is my life. I knew that I always wanted to play. So when I went to Alma, I was kind of juggling it a little bit. Mm-hmm. It was pretty close to being a biology major and maybe following my parents in the medical field. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't stay away from it. So got a performance degree there. Got a performance degree at SMU.
Nice.
Which doesn't allow me to teach. But I had kind of a half-time teaching position that fell into my lap a little bit. It was right when my wife and I were thinking about starting a family and wanting a little bit more stability. And I just kind of fell in love with it then. Like, it wasn't until I got in the classroom and got to hang out with those kids and kind of pass on some of that joy and passion to those younger people.
I find that interesting because, you, like me, spend your days with older students. Mine are 11th and 12th graders at the CTC, but they always feel such pressure at this time in their lives. They've got moms and dads and grandmas and grandpas and uncles and aunts saying, what are you going to do? You're about to graduate.
The unknown.
And it's okay if you don't know at that time, right?
It is.
Right. Well, and my wife did the same thing. She had a couple of different jobs when we were in Texas, did alternative certification to teach. So we both, I kind of joke about it, like we jumped in the game a little bit late. She worked at the Dallas Country Club for a while and a couple other businesses. But it wasn't until we kind of got into the classroom full time that we went, no, this is where we need to be.
What a gift to Cadillac Area Public Schools.
So, really the question is then, Charlie, when Mike retired, how did you get here? How'd you find out about it? Did Mike talk to you about it? I mean, how did that all come about?
Mm-hmm.
Mike did not talk to me about it.
Okay. Because that's a hard thing when you are retiring. Do you try to have a hand in who your replacement's going to be, or do you just let the process play out and kind of stay out of it?
Right.
Well, and after I took the job, Mike was very good about that. He goes, I know all these kids. You're going to teach them differently than I do. I'm gonna stay out of the way.
Class act.
Yeah, and absolutely. And he has, but he's always there for me to, ask for some advice or whatnot. But he did want to just be completely cut ties. I'll show up and watch a concert and say hi, but try not to hold on to his baby, right?
Right. That was out of respect for you.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So if I'm a parent out in our listening audience and I'm flirting with the idea of maybe this is something my child should get involved in, what would you tell a parent?
Yes, do it.
And it's not a big expense because the school will help with the instrument. Is that correct?
For some instruments, they do rentals.
Okay.
Which is the same for orchestra. Choir's cheap. You got your instrument built in.
Yeah, right.
That's true.
But it's at the end of the day, it's not a huge cost. They do rental programs, so that stuff gets spread out. Some instruments, yes, we provide through the school because they cost a lot of money. Mm-hmm. But some of the beginner, smaller instruments like flute, clarinet, trumpet, they're not too bad. Same for the string instruments. But there are plenty of studies that just show that music education helps your brain work better. It's one of those things that forces both of your hemispheres to connect and make more connections. So I tell my kids that all the time. I'm not in the business of creating band directors. I'm not in the business of creating professional musicians. But you being involved in music education is going to help your brain work better. So no matter what you want to do, if you want your brain to work better, learn to play an instrument, join choir, join band, join orchestra.
Mm-hmm. So, Charlie, is there a drum set in your home?
No, unfortunately not. And with a 1-year-old at home, that might not go over too well.
Right.
No, it's on the list.
We've all got a
how band helps your brain develop. So why don't you speak a little bit more to that about what being in a band can do for a sixth grader through the high school years?
Well, beyond just those brain connections, and all art does this, you've got the technical side, you've got the artistic side. So at the beginning, you're learning just the basics. What finger do I push down when? And how do I blow air through this thing to make a sound? But then once you get those basic skills down, then you're using the other side of the brain with that. And that's all music. That's a lot of art too. You think about painting and whatnot. You've got to be good with those, brush strokes and techniques and things. But the other thing, especially in a music program, there's a lot of just other life skills that helps with. It's some responsibility, some time management, some learning how to work as a team. The person playing trumpet right next to you might not be your best friend, but you got to work together. So there's a lot of other just good life skills that they can learn through that.
How much are your students required to practice?
I don't do practice records.
Okay.
Some directors do. At my previous job, I found that I would have students writing down a ridiculous number and then not performing very well on a playing test. I said, no, if you're really practicing that much, you should be doing way better on this playing test. And other kids that would write down honestly, hey, I practice 15 minutes a day, and they'd come in and lay it down and just nail their playing test. So I stopped doing those just because it was hard to, I could tell who's practicing or not.
We call that the Liars Club.
Yeah. So really, I don't give them a set number. It's really just the day-to-day practice that makes the biggest difference. If they've got 45 minutes, awesome. If they've got 10 or 15, that's still good for them in their development, especially the younger students. They're developing muscles in their face that they don't really use that often. So there's a physical kind of athletic side to it as well. So really just the day-to-day, maybe 10, 15 minutes. It'd be better if they could do half an hour, 45. But even my beginners right now, we play for maybe 20, 25 minutes of class, and they're gassed. They start making weird sounds, and it's just, air's leaking out of the sides and everything. But it's because it's a physical thing, so trying to get those facial muscles working like they're supposed to.
It is. Rich, I've always found people are more interesting if they play a musical instrument. And in raising my kids, I used to say to them, what's your personal stock value? What are you worth? What can you do? What makes you special? And so my rule was you have to speak a foreign language and you have to play an instrument. And we got there. I wouldn't say they're accomplished musicians, but they could pick up something and play it a little bit. And I got a little pushback, and then once they got into it, they enjoyed themselves, and they made new friends.
Right. Well, you don't have to be, a top-tier professional musician to enjoy sitting down at a piano and playing something, or picking up your trumpet from 10 years ago and trying to remember how to play hot cross buns, But the foreign language thing, too, it makes your brain kind of think and work in a different way. Yeah. I lived in Mexico for a year as an exchange student. Yeah.
Oh.
So I got both.
Wonderful. Where do you want to take the band? If money was no object and someone said, we're going to give you a great big grant and you do what you want with it, Charlie, where would you take them?
Well, you mean like a location? Or
the program itself?
Program itself, really just having more students involved.
Okay.
I know the school district's a little bit smaller than when I went to school here back in late 90s, early aughts. So just the student body being a little bit smaller makes that a little bit tricky. But I would like to do, when I was at Alma, we did a lot of steel drum stuff.
Neat.
And everybody knows the Petoskey group. And actually the guy who does that was one of my college buddies from Alma.
Wow.
I would love to do that. I think that could get a lot more, not even just percussionists, but, they could get a lot more band students involved in that. And just to do some, community run-out concerts. And, everybody loves a steel band.
Oh, absolutely. Let's talk about peer leadership. Your drum major, your field commander, whatever you call that, the person, the student that's out there that takes real leadership to get your peers to do what you're telling them to do. Can you tell us about that job and how that person is selected?
Well, we do like a tryout, like an audition. It includes some like interview questions, but they also have to display their marching performance. I don't make them play. By the time they're, a junior, senior, I know, their musical expertise or not. But yeah, it's tricky. You got to coach them up a little bit. We bring in people to help with that. There's some summer camps for leadership and like specific to drum majors. Sometimes it's easier for me to pass on a directive to them and let the kids tell the kids.
Uh-huh.
They take that a little bit differently. But for those students that are the drum majors, it can be a little bit tricky for them to try to command their friends.
Sure.
So it's a little bit tricky, but you coach them up a little bit and they kind of understand. And
Yeah. Tell us about how important the band parents are to your program.
100% needed.
Okay. Have you seen these people, Rich? They're driving around the three-wheelers and they got trailers like a train. And
I'll tell you what, for a few years I was a band parent. Kalina was in the band through about 10th grade, and she played flute. She played her mother's flute.
Oh,
the
awesome.
same flute that her mother played in band when she was in high school.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, for a while we were band parents, and those people are they're the boosters.
Mm-hmm.
They're the
cheerleaders,
the transportation, everything. Right?
No, they watch the uniforms.
Right.
They get the right. I mean, I wanted to be in that group. I wanted to hang out with those people because they were just so committed to what the kids were doing. And again, it's my favorite part of the football game is watching the band and how much fun they are having. Plus, of course, the outfits.
Yeah. Right.
Yes. Tell us about your event today. It's a fundraiser for the band boosters. Tell us where it's at and how much money you hope to raise.
Money can vary, and we've got a few more vendors this year than last year, and 2 years ago we weren't able to host.
I would think the further we get away from COVID, the more vendors you will get. That seems logical.
It's a craft show, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
So we've got over 75 vendors that'll be at Fox Motors.
Nice.
And speaking of band parents, it would not happen without a lot of volunteer hours from our band boosters.
Great.
And it's volunteer hours. Every cent that comes back to the band boosters from this event goes back to the students. Mm-hmm. When we take a trip, they pitch in a little bit for each student. It goes to writing our marching band music and our marching band drill, feeding the kids during band camp, any other trip we might make if they need waters and snacks and things. Like every single cent goes right back to the kiddos. Because it is a full-on, nonprofit organization. Mm-hmm. So, and we couldn't do it without Fox either. I mean, they donate the space to us. Mm-hmm. I don't remember when that started. It was not happening when I was in school here, but
Ronnie Urbanavage is that guy.
Yeah,
he's so community focused.
Mm-hmm.
Yep,
he doesn't say no.
They empty out all the cars for us and let us invade their space for a few days, and they just donate that to us, which is amazing.
Oh, everybody support Fox on that one, absolutely.
What is the band's biggest expenditure in the average school year? What are you spending the most money on? Is it an out of town trip? Is it instruments? Is it what is it?
If it's a trip year, because we don't take a trip every year, it's the trip. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's probably food. Mm-hmm. Throughout band camp, we're feeding them lunch and snacks and stuff all the time. A close second would be our marching band show. Again, we pay people to arrange the music, and there's another person who writes our drill, and that starts to add up quickly. Mm-hmm. We don't spend money like some other schools do that are highly competitive. They can spend $50,000, $60,000 a year on a show. We don't do that. But it's possible.
Okay. Question. I'm just interested to know how you wrangle a group of high schoolers that big. So, for example, I played in the symphony in high school. I played the viola. Mr. Falkowski threw his tuner. That's how you knew it was time to shut your mouth, pay attention, stay on point. How does Charlie Rockwell wrangle these students?
Well, I don't have the Mike Filkins whistle. Because he would do the super loud whistle and get everybody's attention. Most of the time, they know. They're chatting and whatnot. I get up on the podium, just wave at them, and they start to calm down. If they don't, I'll just wait for a moment. And then they start going, psst, hey, psst, and nudging their neighbor and going, hey, oh, yeah, Mr. Rockwell's trying to talk to us.
Very easy for a kid to get involved in the conversation with their neighbor, and everything else just kind of falls away, and they don't notice that the teacher is standing in front of them, looking at them gradually more impatiently as you go, you know.
Well,
This sounds like your style, too.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, that's right.
well, I mean, speaking from, it was just yesterday, I had a saxophone that was broken, so it took me about 4 or 5 minutes to walk over and help this kiddo get their instrument working again. So there's some little conversations happening, and I'm okay with that. But then I get back up on the podium, and they're going, oh, okay, get back to business. So
Charlie, I know that this happened with Mike, and I suspect it happens with you, that you become a center of influence in their lives. They have their parents, they have their aunts and uncles or grandparents, but you're separate from that. Can you talk about the relationship with the students?
well, a lot of that's like the relationships the students have, because it's 7 full years. I don't have all 7 classes yet, because my first year of 6th graders, they're now 8th graders. But yeah, it's just the amount of time you spend with them. They get to know you a little bit. You get goofy Christmas gifts from them. I was a flute player, 8th grade flute player, who tried out for All-State this year. She's great. She went to Blue Lake over the summer.
Nice.
Last Christmas, she bought me a coffee mug that's just blank white, and in big bold black letters just says "Student Tears."
Student tears.
And I'm not that kind of. I don't make kids cry, but it was funny that she saw that and went, "I think Mr. Rockwell needs this."
Right, because it's the opposite of you, sort of.
Yeah. So it's up on my desk.
What can the community do to support the Cadillac High School band program?
Well, come out to the craft show.
Yes.
You're helping out with boosters.
Okay.
This is 10 to 4 today, right, at Fox?
It is 9 to 4.
9 to 4, okay.
So what are some examples of things that we can buy at the craft show?
Anything and everything.
Really?
We have a lot of repeat vendors. People that do like metalwork or just normal little crafts and whatnot. We have a coffee place that'll be there.
Cool.
Some cupcakes. Primos will be there with their food truck if you
Yum.
need a snack. So it's a little bit of everything.
Is there an admittance fee? Do people?
There's not.
Nice.
So we do accept donations.
Okay.
So there'll be some funny looking tuba bells and drums at the front gates if you'd like to donate.
Okay.
But no, there's no admittance fee.
That's great. It sounds to me like this might be a good place to go to look for Christmas gifts. And it also sounds to me like it might be a fun family thing to do.
Well, because Santa's going to be there.
Oh, boy.
So absolutely, thinking about Christmas gifts, Santa will be there from 11 to 2:30.
Okay.
Available to take pictures and whatnot. And I'll have a few band kids dressed as elves, some Santa helpers.
So we know you're a drummer, but aside from drums, what's your favorite band instrument?
If I had to go back and do it again, knowing what I know now, I would say I maybe would have tried the clarinet.
Okay. And why is that?
It's got a great range,
Okay.
especially in the lower range. Just the tone quality of it. It's nice and deep and rich, and yeah.
Okay. Is it realistic for a student that goes on to college to be a music major, can they make a living being a musician? How would you coach someone on that?
They would have to find the right, like, post-grad school, master's degree, doctoral degree.
Okay.
They'd have to find the right person who's got connections. And that can be tricky. But really, to get to that top tier, to play in a symphony or something like that, it's hard. When I was in Dallas, the timpanist retired from the Dallas Symphony. So they had auditions, and I was able to kind of be backstage for some of that just to see how it worked. Because one of my teachers also played with the symphony. They had 200 people apply
No way.
Wow.
for one job, and they only invited 60 to audition, and one person gets that job.
Incredible.
It's a lot different than it used to be.
highly competitive.
So you're not, when you're teaching students, you're teaching them the love of music. You're not teaching them to play for a scholarship or anything like that, right?
If that's what they want to do, then absolutely. I can help them get there.
Okay.
And use some of my connections to try to find the right fit for a teacher. You think about them spending 7 years, 1 hour a day with me. You're going to do that with a studio teacher. If you go to Western or Central or State or whatever, you spend a lot of time with that person. So I always tell them to get a practice lesson in with them, just kind of see if you guys get along or not, because you're going to spend a lot of time with them. But there's other ways to make a living in music. Before I started teaching, I had a pretty good private lesson studio and was playing in some regional symphonies and some musicals and little things like that. You can make that work. It's a little tricky to be self-employed and do your own taxes, but it's not impossible. I had some other colleagues that had 50, 60 lesson students every week.
Incredible.
So you can
sure.
fill in a work day of doing private lessons.
So, question about your 1-year-old, your child. Is it going to be a requirement to be in the band?
Nope.
Okay.
Nor for my 8-year-old.
Okay, so how do those conversations go?
Well, my 8-year-old already says he wants to play the trumpet, so that's easy.
You bet. Awesome.
No, I would like them to be involved in music one way or another. I think growing up around band, they might lean that way a little bit.
Sure.
Just because that's what they're exposed to and what they're used to. But I wouldn't force it upon them. I would want them to try.
Sure. These shows like Glee or High School Musical, or do you think that helps kids understand you can be part of a group that is talented and it's exciting?
I think so.
Okay.
And like we talked about earlier, they see some of those characters that are maybe not one little clique. They kind of come from different areas of the school, and they can come together with that common interest and common joy of making some music.
Awesome.
Let's circle back around and talk about today's event, because we've just got about 2.5 minutes left. So, Charlie, if you would tell people why they should go today.
Well, I mean, Christmas shopping, we talked about that.
Sure.
There's going to be a lot of vendors, a lot of local places. It's fun just to kind of walk around and see, kind of like the arts fair in over the summer, just to see what people are making and get some gift ideas and help support those local artists as well. It's always fun to see Santa. Like I said, every cent goes back to the band students. It goes through band boosters, but it all gets sent back to the kids, and really helps us run the band program. Without the help, it would be a different thing. Plus, we'll have a small ensemble there around the lunch hour.
Nice.
Playing some Christmas music. Might be too early for some people, but I think some people, the day after Halloween start pulling out Christmas music. So
It's true.
Well, and not only that, but temperatures have really cooled down this weekend. So after having a really mild October and early November, it's now starting to feel like it should this time of year. And that'll put people in the right mind for that, too.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Yep, don't want to step on Thanksgiving's toes, but
Right? A light dusting of snow would be nice for you, Charlie.
that would. It snowed on us last year, so
There you go.
So maybe that'll happen again.
I've always said it's a gift to the community when a talented person comes back and invests. And so I just wanted to thank you for your energy and for leaving Texas and coming back to Michigan. And we're really fortunate to have you running the band.
Well, thank you very much.
Don't miss it. It's 9 to 4 today, Fox Motors, the annual Cadillac Band Boosters Hobby and Craft Show. Our guest today, Charlie Rockwell, who is the band director at from 6th grade on, right?
Correct.
At Cadillac Area Public Schools. Next week, we're going to shift gears, and if all goes well, we're going to be talking athletics with Fred Bryant. So
Our athletic director, that's right.
make sure and join us. Charlie, again, thanks.
Thank you for having me.
Cadillac Unscripted is sponsored by Independent Bank, and we'll see you again next weekend, Saturday morning at 8:30 for some more local chat on 107.9 CDY.